Welcome back to the channel. As usual, I'm Expel and I'll be your guide. Shadowlands is around the corner, and if you haven't started preparing for it, this update will be perfect for you. Quick shameless plug before we start, please drop a sub and don't forget to like this video if it was helpful in any way. But without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to be covering most of the Shadowlands updates that are important to class power and borrowed power. While most of these updates are generally good and exciting to hear about, most of Blizzard's problems lay around compound and complex systems. While these don't affect the casual scope of players in a large way, they do affect most competitive players. Regardless of what category you fall under, you'll be affected by one of these systems at some point. Whether it's negative or positive, that's up to you. We're going to be flying through some of these changes, as there isn't much to discuss about them. But if you are looking for specific class changes, the links will be in the description. So let's start off with a level squish. It's greatly appreciated and in due time. Your maximum level will be reduced from 120 to 60, while in pre-patch your level will be 50 and your experience will be locked until Shadowlands fully releases. Chromie time will allow you to select a region within WoW and start leveling there. You're also able to switch off your experience while leveling to complete any storylines if you wish to. This is a really nice touch if you want to get deeper into those quest lines that you're really interested in. Moving on to stat squishes. Your player stats have been altered and so has the world around you, but don't worry, you are still able to solo older content within WoW with ease. Concerning diminishing returns, all secondary stats will receive a penalty if you heavily stack those. For example, players stacking above 30% haste will receive a 10% penalty, players that stack above 39% haste will receive a 20% penalty, and so forth. Luckily, things like Bloodlust or Heroism do not trigger your diminishing returns, but trinkets that grant you a stat proc do. So for the midterm and the end term of Shadowlands, stat balancing will be of great importance. This was most likely implemented to curb the amount of power we gain during patches and expansions. Moving forward, we have the class changes. A lot of abilities have come back as a baseline. This mainly means that most of the abilities you have in one spec is retained within another, keeping the class identity safe and making the game much more enjoyable. Along with things that are more enjoyable, Blizzard is still adding and removing class abilities to the GCD, so do keep an eye on what you're playing during the pre-patch. Followed up now by the area of effect abilities. Blizzard has decided that it's best to limit these damaging abilities to a number of mobs. We currently have a soft cap and a hard cap respectively. This mainly affects classes such as the Death Knight Scourge Strike and other similar abilities which take advantage of multiple enemies being stacked closely together. But that's not all Blizzard has changed. Blizzard has now limited the amount at which you regenerate mana. Water now regenerates mana slower in the first few seconds you begin to drink, increasing rapidly as you drink continuously. I would like to see how this change impacts healers within dungeons and PvP. Next we have the new seasonal affix we'll be expecting in Shadowlands, the Manifestation of Pride. Much like the Reaping from Season 2 of BFA, Prideful will trigger once you've killed 20% of the mobs within the dungeon. Defeating the Prideful manifestation will grant you 1 minute buff, which empowers you with 30% damage, 60% movement speed, and 5% mana regen per second. Along with Shadowlands, they'll be introducing some new affixes. Inspiring, which has some non-boss enemies have an inspiring presence that strengthens the allies around them. Spiteful, which has ally foes rise from the corpses of non-boss enemies and pursue random players. This effect is very much like the corruption effect from BFA. But lastly, we have Storming, which periodically summons damaging whirlwinds while you are in combat. The Great Vault, the new weekly cache which rewards you based on the content you've done. But how does this actually work? Well, they've changed it and made it quite challenging for the start of the tier. While most people dread stepping into high tier Mythic Plus dungeons, your first choice will always be based on the highest content that you've done. Whether it's raiding, PvP or Mythic Plus, you could always have a choice between 9 different pieces of gear if you're willing to go through the effort. Raiding has also a slight difference to the gearing. Class tokens will now be shared between multiple classes, allowing you to buy things like weapons so that you don't need to wait on that weapon drop that you so desperately need. Bonus roll tokens are also now a thing of the past. You won't be able to get double loot within Shadowlands anymore, but at least we get to choose what gear we want now. A worthwhile trade in my opinion. And now I would just like to take some time and welcome back the long lost Legendaries of Legion. Yes, they're back and seemingly for the most part unchanged. I must add that there are some new Legendaries that have been added, but every class has at least 16 different Legendaries to choose from. However, the way in which you obtain these Legendaries have drastically changed. Previously in Legion, these items dropped randomly from most of the content that you were doing, so at some point in time you'd eventually get a random Legendary. But most players had an issue with the way that the system worked. You couldn't target specific Legendary powers due to drops being completely random. Fortunately enough, that has changed now. In Shadowlands, after pledging yourself to a Covenant at level 60, you will be offered a quest line which will take you into the mall, introduce you to the quests, geography, and unlock Torghast itself. You will also be introduced to the Rune Carver. He will be assisting you in crafting those specific Legendaries you seek. So instead of working to acquire a legendary piece of gear, you will now work to acquire items and materials. This will allow you to create your own gear with variable stats, allowing you to essentially socket a legendary power to an existing piece of gear. You will need multiple different materials from multiple different players to craft your legendaries, which is a really nice touch and balance to legendaries. Torghast is located in the mall. This is where the jailer's most important souls are kept. As a player, you will be travelling to Torghast on a weekly basis. You will fight through different floors and obtain different types of power-ups to improve your strategy within. After your run is complete, you will receive Soul Ash. Players looking to improve their characters will be spending a great deal of time here, as Torghast is slated to be the primary way for players to obtain Soul Ash. Soul Ash is used to craft your legendaries, but you do have a weekly limit to how much you can obtain. Yes, Covenants, the part of Shadowlands which has also been brewing for an extended amount of time, hoping it wouldn't go sour. But here we are, and we're going to break this down. When you enter the Shadowlands for the first time, with your first character at level 50, your character will begin by escaping the mall. You will then quest through the 4 major zones, each individually controlled by a different covenant. These covenants consist of the Carrion, Necrolords, Nightfade, and Venthyr. Each of the 4 covenants have a separate covenant campaign that dives deeper into the story of the covenant and reveals more of their motivations, issues, and objectives. You'll be introduced to your covenant sanctum and learn how to start unlocking their secrets. To progress through the system of your chosen covenant, you will need to earn renown. This is a covenant-specific metered system that measures your progress of favor with your covenant. Renown is actually considered a currency, so it will be stored in your currency tab. There are also separate renown currencies for every covenant. Unlike Azerite Power, renown is not an open-ended grind, it is based on your covenant campaign and 2 weekly quests. Also, unlike Azerite Power, there will be a weekly cap on how much renown you can earn. But we can summarize this in 3 easy methods. Complete the chapters of your chosen covenant campaign, deliver the defined amount of anima, and rescue the worthy souls from the mall once every week. While earning renown, your Covenant Sanctum is upgradable. This helps us with travelling throughout the different parts of Shadowlands, and it also grants you your daily quests by upgrading your Covenant Animal Conductor. Shadowlands also has a whole new missions table, similar to BFA but not entirely. The Sanctum upgrades won't be directly tied to your player power, but mainly cosmetics and resources, so you won't need to grind daily quests as often as what you thought you would anymore. With Covenants come Soulbinds and Conduits. Each Covenant has 3 Soulbind options, and each of those 3 Soulbind options has anywhere from 3 to 6 branching paths. Conduits are items which allow you an additional level of customization to your Soulbind, with bonuses that are specific to your class or spec. These conduits can be categorized into 3 types: potency for throughput, endurance for survival, and finesse for utility. Conduits can be acquired as a reward from playing any max level content. This includes dungeons, PvP, raids, reputations, world quests, etc. Most conduits will be available from more than one source, allowing flexibility of acquisition across content types. And thank you very much for watching this guide. Shadowlands looks like a really interesting expansion, even though it's starting out with a lot of systems. Let me know down below what you think of Shadowlands, like this video and subscribe for more future guides, it helps me out a lot. And feel free to ask me any questions over in the comments section.